Imagine waking up not in a warm bed, not inside a house, not even inside a tent. You open your eyes to a world where the temperature can drop below minus 30 degrees Celsius. The wind feels like thousands of tiny knives cutting your skin. Snow stretches to the horizon. There are no jackets, no heaters, no blankets, no hot showers, no coffee. And somehow, you're expected to survive. Ancient humans didn't just survive the Ice Age, they spread across Europe, crossed frozen landscapes, hunted giant mammoths, raised children, and lived there for thousands of years. How? Because if you think the answer is simply fire, you're only scratching the surface. The real answer is much more surprising. By the end of this video, you'll discover why ancient humans were actually much better at surviving freezing temperatures than most people alive today. Let's go back to the 0 point. When people hear the words Ice Age, they imagine Earth as one giant snowball. But that's not exactly true. Large parts of the planet were covered in enormous glaciers, some over 3 kilometers thick. Sea levels were more than 100 meters lower than today because so much water was trapped as ice. Entire countries looked completely different. But not every place was buried under snow. Many areas were cold, dry grasslands called the Mammoth Steppe. Imagine endless fields instead of forests, no tall trees, almost nowhere to hide, and freezing winds that never seemed to stop. If you were standing there wearing a t-shirt, you'd probably last only a short time before your body began shutting down. So how did humans manage? Let's start with the most obvious answer: clothing. Ancient humans didn't have shopping malls, no online stores, no winter collection 30% off. If your jacket failed, you died, which is a pretty effective quality control system. Scientists believe humans carefully removed animal skins and cleaned them using stone tools. But simply throwing a fur over your shoulders wasn't enough. Heavy skins become stiff, wet, and uncomfortable. So people discovered something remarkable. They softened hides using animal brains. Yes, brains. It sounds disgusting, but animal brains contain natural oils that help preserve leather. There's even an old saying among traditional hunters: every animal has enough brains to tan its own hide. It's weird, but it works. Eventually, humans invented bone needles, not just sharp sticks, actual sewing needles with tiny eyes for thread. That meant clothing could finally fit the body instead of hanging loosely. And that's a huge advantage. Loose clothes let warm air escape. Fitted clothes trap it. Even today, that's exactly how winter clothing keeps us warm. Thousands of years ago, humans had already figured it out. Of course, fire mattered, but not just because it made people warm. Fire changed almost everything. It dried wet clothes, cooked food, scared away predators, provided light during long winter nights, allowed people to work after sunset. And perhaps most importantly, it created a place to gather. Think about it. Without phones, without TV, without electricity, the fire became the center of life. Families sat around it, telling stories, teaching children, making tools, planning hunts. In a strange way, the fireplace may have been humanity's very first living room. But even fire had limits. You can't carry a campfire while chasing a mammoth across snowy plains. So humans needed another strategy: their own bodies. Have you ever noticed your hands becoming cold while the rest of your body stays warm? That's not a mistake, it's survival. Your body automatically protects your most important organs. When temperatures drop, blood vessels in your fingers, toes, arms, and legs become narrower. Less warm blood reaches them. Instead, your heart, lungs, and brain stay warmer. It's called vasoconstriction, and it's one of the reasons humans survive cold weather. Ancient humans relied on this system constantly. But there's another trick: shivering. It feels annoying, but shivering is actually thousands of tiny muscle contractions happening every second. Your body is literally exercising without asking your permission, just to create heat. It's basically your body's emergency heating system. Annoying, yes. Brilliant, also yes. Here's something most people don't realize. Staying warm isn't free. Heat costs energy, lots of it. The colder it gets, the more calories your body burns. That's why ancient hunters ate enormous amounts of meat and fat. Not because they loved giant steaks, although they probably didn't complain, but because fat contains more than twice the energy of carbohydrates. A successful mammoth hunt wasn't just dinner, it was survival for weeks. Bone marrow, animal fat, organs, nothing was wasted. Modern diets often avoid fat. Ice Age humans depended on it. To them, fat wasn't unhealthy, it was life. Imagine spending months trapped in freezing temperatures completely alone. Almost impossible. Humans survived because they stayed together. Groups shared body heat, shared food, shared work, shared knowledge. Older members taught younger ones where to hunt, which plants could still be found, how to make better clothing, how to survive storms. One person's discovery became everyone's advantage. That's something many animals can't do as effectively. Humans don't just evolve through biology, we evolved through information. Knowledge became one of our greatest survival tools, and that may have been even more important than fire itself. You might imagine ancient humans sleeping under random trees, not during an ice age. People built shelters using whatever the environment offered: animal skins, wood, stone, even mammoth bones. Yes, entire structures made from mammoth bones have been discovered by archaeologists. Huge curved tusks formed frames. Animal skins covered the outside. Inside, small fires helped keep the space warm. These weren't luxury homes, but compared to sleeping outside in freezing winds, they felt like five-star hotels. And here's something clever. Many shelters were built in places naturally protected from the wind, because stopping the wind often keeps you warmer than simply making more heat. Sometimes the smartest solution isn't creating warmth, it's preventing yourself from losing it. Remember the question from the beginning. If fire isn't the answer, what is? Here's the part most people never hear. Humans weren't the only species with fire, weren't the only species with clothing, weren't even the only species with shelter. Neanderthals had all three. For hundreds of thousands of years, they survived brutal cold using fire, fur, and caves. And then they disappeared. Not because they were weaker, not because they were less intelligent, but because when the climate shifted again, suddenly, violently, they couldn't shift with it. Humans could. If the mammoths moved north, humans followed. If a shelter design failed, humans redesigned it. If a hunting method stopped working, humans abandoned it within a generation. Nothing about human survival was fixed. Everything about it was adjustable. That's the real answer. Not fire, not fur, not any single invention. Flexibility. The ability to throw away what wasn't working and replace it almost overnight. So the next time you feel a cold wind, remember this. You're not just wearing a jacket, you're wearing 30,000 years of trial and error. Every stitch, every layer, every shelter design is the result of ancestors who refused to freeze to death without trying something new first. They didn't outpower the ice age. They outadapted it. And that is the 0 point, where survival began not with strength, with the willingness to change. If this made you look at winter a little differently, hit like, it really helps, and subscribe if you want to keep going back with me, because next time we go back even further. Oh, and I've got a question for you. If you were dropped into the Ice Age right now with absolutely nothing, what's the first thing you'd try to make? Fire, clothes, or something else? Let me know in the comments. I actually read them.